Ms. Warner, please call roll to confirm a quorum.
Councilmember Abdel-Gawad,
Here.
Councilmember Barber,
Present.
Councilmember Burke,
Present.
Councilmember Holman,
Present.
Councilmember Hubach, Councilmember
Present.
Kellogg,
Present.
Councilmember Moorhead.
Present.
Councilmember Stevens,
Present.
Mayor Kirkhoff.
Present. We do have a quorum. If everybody please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have no presentations and awards or personal appearances tonight, so we'll move right on over to staff reports.
Thank you, sir. I would ask that Mr. Krass make a staff report for Public Works.
Thank you, Mr. Fairborn. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, just wanted to give you an update on a few of the construction projects that are going on. Recently completed modifications to the lower police entrance area, just below you there, providing 4 parking stalls for police vehicles and also a sidewalk connection from the parking lot to Municipal Circle. The Olive Street's sidewalk, which will connect and replace the sidewalk from Madison Street to Monroe, is scheduled to start next week. Work is continuing on the curb project, the Johnson Drive water main project. We anticipate the Johnson Drive reconstruction project will start mid-September. That concludes my report.
Questions for staff? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Krass. I would ask that Ms. Houck make a report for, well, a couple of different reports, actually, she's got for you tonight.
Great. Thank you. Good evening. Before I get started with the Arts Commission report tonight, I want to share with you a new piece of art that we have for City Hall. This piece of art was done by Heather Gambrell. She is one of our arts commissioners, and she gave it to us to hang in the City Hall copy room. What's great about this print is it will also be used for the festival in the park. They're using it as well. So we're very happy that she gave this to us as a gift to the city, and I just wanted to publicly thank her for that. Moving on to the Arts Commission report, the Arts Commission held their first official meeting on August 11th, last Tuesday. At it, they cast lots for the length of their terms, which you can see in your report. They also voted to appoint Sharon Paris as the chair and Harriet Lawrence as the vice chair. Some items on the agenda: the community arts facilitator, which is the agreement for that is on the agenda for you all to consider this evening, so I'll save my comments on that until that agenda item. The Arts Commission is also sponsoring the Festival in the Park Parade, and they will serve as judges at the parade and have a float in the parade. The purpose of that is to just help get the word out that the city has an Arts Commission now. They're also working with the Tri-County Art League at the Art Fest show in November. The members of the Arts Commission will be volunteers at that event, and they're also discussing the potential of hosting an art contest for high school students and middle school students in the area. So we'll have more information on that after their September meeting. Streetlight banners. Sharon Paris and I will actually be at the park board meeting tomorrow night to make a presentation to the park board about potentially splitting the cost for the brackets to put up streetlight banners throughout town. We just want to get an initial read on if the park board would be interested in splitting that cost, and then that will come to the city council for consideration at a future meeting as well. And then finally, on July 27th, the Arts Commission met with the City Council's Roundabout Committee to discuss the funding for Phase 2 of the Roundabout project. At their August 11th meeting, the Arts Commission elected to not support the recommendation to move that forward in the CIP funding. They said that since they hadn't been involved since the beginning of that conversation, they didn't want to support an initiative to spend money on that right now without having a clear direction from the community about what they felt about public art. So it wasn't that they weren't supportive of the project, they just didn't feel like it was their place to make that recommendation at that point in time. I'd be happy to answer any questions about the Arts Commission's last meeting.
Questions of staff? Thank you.
Thank you. The other item I have this evening is the grant report, which is in your packet. We are still waiting to hear on the Recreation Trails Program grant. We should know about that in late summer. We are in late summer, so hopefully we'll get a read on that fairly quickly, and we will report back to you all in September about that grant. Any questions about the grant report?
Questions of staff? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Finally, this evening, I'd like to call Mike Eakey up to the podium. He's going to give you a brief summary on some of the live tweeting that we've been doing and the success of that project.
Good evening. So the report that we included in this week's packet included some highlights from the live tweeting of the budget presentation from August 15th. Kind of went into that with really no expectations, really unsure how people would respond or react. Had a great response from the very beginning. Throughout the entire day, from about 8 a.m. to noon that day during the budget presentation, had about a dozen different updates that we posted to the city's Twitter account. Out of the day, we had about 3,200 views in all of the updates, and about 131 different people actually interacted either by clicking on the items that we had posted, going to the city website to learn more, or asking questions directly through the Twitter account. The report also includes a couple interactions that I just wanted to highlight and show you as well. Hopefully we'll be doing this a few more times with different events and meetings. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just to update you on your upcoming calendar events, next week, of course, is the 5th Monday of the month, and traditionally the council does not meet on that Monday, and we sure have been meeting a lot, so I did not try to schedule anything for you all for the 5th Monday, give you some time off. The following Monday is Labor Day, so there is traditionally no council meeting scheduled for the holiday, which would make your next meeting September 7th, September 14th, regular council meeting, and there will be need for executive session that night. That concludes staff reports, sir.
Okay, there's no committee reports, so I'll entertain a motion to dispose of the consent agenda. Oh, go ahead, Kevin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Excuse me. With the absence of 2 meetings back-to-back, do we look at a backlog of things that will need to be taken care of when we do meet the next time in a public meeting?
The 2 meetings that would, well, of course, August, the 5th Monday, there's traditionally not a meeting, although we have been calling you in. But both of those meeting nights would be work session nights, and we have the work session calendar scheduled out, so we would not be conducting any regular business of the council.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to dispose of the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda to include items A, the city council minutes for August 10th, 2015, and B, the resolution 15-41, accepting the fiscal year 2015 1 and INI CIPP project.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. That moves us on over to unfinished business. We have the second reading of Bill 3090 by title only, please.
The second reading of Bill 3090 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri certifying final costs for the installation of sidewalk on certain undeveloped lots located within the City of Raymore, Cass County, Missouri.
I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3090 for the certification of final cost for installation of sidewalks on undeveloped lots.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the second reading of Bill 3090. Is there any discussion? All in favor? 3, 4, 5, 6. Opposed? 2 opposed, 6 in favor. The bill passes. We have the second reading of Bill 3093 by title only, please.
The second reading of Bill 3093 by title only, an ordinance pursuant to Section 67.110 of the revised statutes of Missouri, levying general and special taxes in the City of Raymore, Missouri for the year 2015.
This requires a public hearing, so I'll open up the public hearing. And I'll ask for a motion?
Do we need the public hearing closed before a motion is requested?
Yeah, the council will recall that I had asked that the council continue the public hearing in case there was a change in the levy. We had received no information from the county clerk that there would be a change in the levy. So at this time, the levy numbers stand. You could close the public hearing prior to
Alright.
the motion being made.
Seeing nobody wanted to come forward, I'll close the public hearing, and I'll entertain a motion to dispose of Bill 3093.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3093 for setting the 2015 tax levy.
Second.
There is a motion and a second to approve the second reading of Bill 3093. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. May we have the second reading of Bill 3092 by title only, please?
The second reading of Bill 3092 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri establishing a procedure to disclose potential conflicts of interest and substantial interest for certain officials and candidates for elective offices.
I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3092, our financial disclosure ordinance.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the second reading of Bill 3092. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. May I have the second reading of Bill 3089 by title only, please?
The second reading of Bill 3089 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Terry Snelling Construction, Inc. for the 2015 sidewalk project, city project number 15-219-201, in the amount of $129,326.40, and authorizing the city manager to approve change orders within established budget constraints.
I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3089 for the 2015 sidewalk project.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the second reading of Bill 3089. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. May I have the second reading of Bill 3097, please?
The second reading of Bill 3097 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with McConnell and Associates Corp. For the outdoor athletic court resurfacing project, city project number 15-224-201, in the amount of $83,700, and authorizing the city manager to approve change orders within established budget constraints.
And I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3097 for the outdoor athletic court resurfacing project.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the second reading of Bill 3097. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. May we have the second reading of Bill 3098 by title only, please?
The second reading of Bill 3098 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri amending the capital budget of the fiscal year 2015 budget.
I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3098 for the budget amendment for the outdoor athletic court resurfacing project.
Second.
There is a motion and a second to approve the second reading of Bill 3098. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. You have the second reading of Bill 3094 by title only, please.
The second reading of Bill 3094 by title only, an ordinance authorizing the escrow of funds sufficient to pay a portion of the outstanding general obligation refunding bonds, Series 2013, of the City of Raymore, Missouri, and authorizing certain documents and actions in connection therewith.
I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3094 for the partial defeasance of the city's Series 2013 bond.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the second reading of Bill 3094. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. We have the second reading of Bill 3095 by title only, please.
The second reading of Bill 3095 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri amending the fiscal year 2015 operating budget.
I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3095 for the amendment of the fiscal year 2015 operating budget to address the fiscal year 2014 encumbrances.
Second.
There is a motion and a second to approve the second reading of Bill 3095. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. That takes care of old business. We move on to new business. And may we have the first reading of Bill 3096 by title only, please?
The first reading of Bill 3096 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, amending various sections of the Unified Development Code of the Raymore City Code.
And this requires a public hearing, so I'll open the public hearing by asking for a staff report.
Thank you, sir. I would ask Mr. Cataret to make the staff report.
Thank you. In June, the Planning and Zoning Commission completed its annual review of the Unified Development Code. There were 7 minor amendments to the UDC that were discussed, and the Planning Commission directed staff to prepare the 22nd Amendment to the UDC, which is before you this evening. The general purpose of this 22nd Amendment is to provide clarification on several different provisions of the code. It creates specific findings of fact that the Commission and the Council will utilize when considering a request to modify the sign regulations. We consider a modification of sign regulations as a conditional use permit, and so the Commission wanted to establish specific findings of fact for that request. And it also incorporates a new cul-de-sac design standard that was promulgated by the Director of Public Works. This design standard modifies the design of the cul-de-sac. It reduces the amount of pavement. It incorporates an island in the middle of the cul-de-sac that could be utilized for stormwater treatment. And that's a standard now we're proposing to incorporate into the code. An amendment to the code does require a public hearing that we advertise for this evening. I need to enter into the record our growth management plan, the Unified Development Code, the notice of publication in the Journal. The staff report submitted to the Council this evening. The Planning Commission has submitted its findings of fact on this request, and at its August 4th meeting, they held a public hearing, and they voted 9-0 to recommend approval of the 22nd Amendment to the Council, and I've included the meeting minutes from their August 4th meeting for your review. It goes over their discussion of the 7 different recommended changes. That concludes staff report.
Questions of staff? Okay, I'll open the floor for public comment. Please identify yourself for the record and keep your comments to under 5 minutes. See nobody come forward, I'll close the public hearing, and I'll entertain a motion to dispose of Bill 3096.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3096 for the 22nd Amendment to the Unified Development Code.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve Bill 3096. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. We have a reading of Bill 3101 by title only, please.
The first reading of Bill 3101 by title only, an ordinance approving a funding agreement between Raymore Partners LLC and the City of Raymore, Missouri for the proposed Highway 58 and Dean Avenue redevelopment project.
Staff report.
Thank you, sir. I would ask that the report come from the city's Special Economic Development Council, Mr. David Bushak with Gilmore and Bell.
Good evening. My name is David Bushak with the law firm of Gilmore and Bell. Our firm is bond counsel and economic development counsel to the city. This ordinance would approve a funding agreement for the city to consider a developer's request to use tax increment financing and a community improvement district for development that's proposed at the southeast corner of Dean Avenue and Highway 58. This is a different developer and a different development as compared to the previous project that was proposed for the site that came to the city last calendar year. The funding agreement would provide a source of funds for the city to consider the application for the use of TIF revenues and CID revenues. My understanding is that the developer has signed the agreement and the deposit has already been made. So the developer is ready to proceed with their application if this is approved. The agreement does not obligate the city to approve anything. It does not obligate the city to approve a TIF plan or community improvement district. It simply enables the city to have a source of funds to consider the developer's application and proceed forward. The tentative schedule, if this proceeds, if the developer submits their information on the time frame that they've indicated, this is likely to go to the TIF Commission sometime in November, probably before Thanksgiving, and then it would come to the City Council in December if everything proceeds on schedule. That concludes my comments.
Questions? Go ahead.
Mr. Bushwick, we talked about this much earlier in the year, and I know that there was a little bit of pressure to make sure that this is timed out properly. So with a new developer stepping in, first of all, do you have confidence that the developer will either meet or exceed the plan that was initially proposed? And are there any changes, or are we still on track to meet the timeline that we initially discussed?
There's no particular timeline associated with the development of this property. You may be asking about what is Project 4 of the Galleria project. This is actually development of the Dean Family Farm property, the remaining corner up at the southeast corner of that intersection. So this is not currently in a TIF area. It's entirely different development, even though it's nestled within the area that's been developed. This is a different developer, different project entirely.
And what the council member may be overlapping with is the original developer, which was Ferguson. They had some very, very specific tight timeframes that they continued to espouse to the council as far as being able to get their financing. Those aren't in play with this particular one.
Other questions? Thank you. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3101 for the advanced funding agreement with Raymore Partners LLC.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve the first reading of Bill 3101. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Have a reading of Bill 3099 by title only, please.
The first reading of Bill 3099 by title only. An ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Jill Grotzinger in the amount of $4,450 to provide facilitation services for the City Arts Commission.
Staff report.
Thank you. I'll call on Ms. Howe.
Good evening. Thank you. In June, the Arts Commission directed staff to obtain proposals for a facilitator to lead a community conversation regarding the arts this fall. The purpose of this project is to hear from the community what type of art they're interested in and help the Arts Commission develop a direction to focus their initial efforts in. The project will include 2 community discussions, a facilitated meeting with the Arts Commission, and a final report summarizing the findings and making a recommendation about the next step. The commission reviewed 3 proposals at its August meeting and selected Jill Grotzinger to recommend to the City Council for approval. The budget for this project is $4,450, and the Arts Commission did approve it unanimously.
Questions? Stevens?
You know, I kind of thought we had the Arts Commission put together so that they would handle these sorts of things. So I want to ask, why do we need this facilitator and spend this money?
So the Arts Commission is really excited to get started, but when you start looking at art, there are so many different types of art that exist, and so they're trying to get a handle on if the Raymore community is interested in public art, like sculptures, if they're interested in performing arts, if they're interested in arts education, really to get a better direction on what the community needs and how the city and the Arts Commission can help build a community and cultivate some opportunities related to art. They feel that they're lacking a little direction in that right now and really want to take some time up front to hear from the community before they start developing any programs to make sure the recommendations to the council are on track.
Sonia?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was wondering if this proposal allows for any kind of online participation, any kind of participation outside the meeting. I know we've had struggles with getting people to come to meetings, and a lot of people in town want to be involved who aren't able to come to meetings. So when I was reading over it, it didn't look like there was any way for people to be involved other than coming to the meeting. So I was concerned about that.
There is actually, one bullet point in her proposal discusses that she'll work with staff to help develop questions for an online survey component. So staff will actually be in charge of developing that component of the public engagement process and distributing it throughout the community. And then Ms. Grotzinger will incorporate the results of that online engagement into her final report to the Arts Commission.
What page is that on?
It should be. It would be 215. If you look under Phase 1, it says confirm alignment of key questions with city-generated survey.
Yeah, I saw that, but it doesn't say anything about it being online or creating an online discussion. I know when the Parks Board had kind of a similar thing working on Huck Ridge, we got lots of great discussion through an online source.
So Ms. Grotzinger won't actually be doing any of the work related to the online survey. Staff will be handling that all internally. So we'll be doing the work related to the online component. But it definitely was part of the conversation that the Arts Commission has, and they intend to have an online component to allow for people to participate who can't make it to the meeting.
Other questions of staff? Stevens?
What exactly is this woman going to do? Is she just going to have a survey? I'm not quite really certain what her purpose is going to be.
So she'll lead two facilitated community conversations. So the Arts Commission will work with the City Council to develop a list of stakeholders in the community who could have an interest in working around the arts in Raymore. And then she'll host two community meetings to talk about, what art looks like in Raymore, how can the community cultivate that, etc. The online survey will exist to help support that for people who can't attend the meetings. And then Ms. Grotzinger will put together a final report and talk to the Arts Commission about those findings and help lead them through kind of a goal-setting process to help give them some direction over the next year. The intent of all of this is to take it through the Arts Commission and then present those findings to the City Council at the end of that process as well.
So performing arts be part of it as well?
Yes, all components of the arts.
Go ahead.
I was very excited to see this on our agenda. I mean, when we put the Arts Commission together, one of the important aspects of this was we gave them very little direction. We wanted them to create their own. Ms. Houck, isn't that really what this intent is, to have somebody help them? And I believe city staff, we've had other consultants come in at substantially higher amounts. I mean, this is a very small consulting fee compared to what the city's paid in the past. So it's basically helping them get on their feet.
That's correct.
Kevin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What I see this is similarly to what the council's undertaking right now with the strategic planning, and that's what the Arts Council is, I believe, attempting to do here. I support them doing this. I think this is a good idea. They could easily call us, each of the council, but all that would do is just, set up the council dictating to the Arts Commission what we want, or trying to steer it that way. And that isn't the, I don't think that was the intent or the spirit of the agreement that or the assurance we gave to the Arts Commission when we appointed them and set them free and asked them to do what we wanted them to do. I feel that they're doing exactly what they are set out to be doing, looking for community input. They will get mine as a community member, but they won't get it from me as a council member. So I, extend my thank yous and congratulations to them, and that's all I got.
Sonia, did you have anything more? Okay. Any other?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I have a question on it. Anytime we've had contracts of any kind, how big ones or small ones, we have always had them presented to us as the two or the three people who have applied to it with their experiences. And even though we went ahead and accepted what the staff recommended, at least we had something in front of us to show what their experience was, who had applied. And I don't see that on this. I've seen it on everything else, and I'm concerned that why we didn't have it on this.
It's my apologies that wasn't provided. I wasn't familiar with the fact that had been presented to you all in the past. The Arts Commission did take a look at 3 different proposals. All individuals who are connected with the arts community, who have experiences working with government entities and bridging that gap between the arts community and government entities. There's one other public arts consultant. The Lawrence Arts Center out of the city of Lawrence actually submitted a proposal for review. And then Jill Grotzinger, who is connected with the City of Overland Park Arts and Recreation Commission, and leads this sort of process for that community. The Arts Commission did take time to read through those processes. I did interviews and reference checks with all of the consultants, and the Arts Commission ultimately decided Ms. Grotzinger was the best fit for the program they were looking to implement. I'd be happy to provide those by the next meeting if you're interested.
Any other comments? Kevin?
Question. This might fall to our legal. Is this one of those instances where we are, the body is not required to take the low bid because of the specialty of the expertise?
This actually falls under a request for qualifications process. So it's an even higher level than lowest, and you know, you have a straight bid, you take the low bid. You have no options with that. Then you have lowest and best bid relative to a request for proposals. Then in a process like this, even though they're submitting proposals, you're actually looking at the qualifications of the individual. It's a professional services contract.
Any other? Go ahead. Joe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was going to say that I did take some time to look up Jill Grotzinger on the web and found some of the different art projects that she had been involved with in Overland Park, and thought, of course I don't have expertise in this, but I was impressed with the things that were easily obtainable by myself on the internet.
Okay, if there's no more questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to present a motion to approve Bill 3099, the agreement for the Arts Commission's facilitator.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve Bill 3099. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. We have a first reading of Bill 3100 by title only, please.
The first reading of Bill 3100 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, amending the fiscal year 2015 capital budget.
Staff report.
Thanks, sir. This dual project was presented to the council at your budget work session held a couple of weeks ago. As requested by council at the work session, a budget amendment has been prepared and is being presented to the council for consideration to provide the funding that was listed within the two CIP projects to complete the project in fiscal year 2015. The elements included in this project were outlined in the staff memo. The only exception to that list of projects is the event stage, which from the very beginning of the project we had indicated would probably, for that stage to work, is going to take perhaps a little bit more land than we currently have. So even though the total amount that you see before you for this budget amendment includes the stage, until such time as that possibility would exist, the stage would not be in play, for lack of a better term.
Questions of staff?
I do too, but go ahead.
Go ahead now.
So, just to clarify, that we wouldn't build the stage, but we would hold the funds to build the stage should the situation change as far
That
as
is correct, sir.
land acquisition. Thank you.
That is exactly what I was going to ask.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3100 for the budget amendment for the Farmers Market Depot Enhancement Package.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve Bill 3100. Is there any discussion?
I believe this was one of the projects that I suggested we take out of CIP and move into this year's budget. If you haven't been to the Farmers Market Park, whether you go there on a frequent basis or not, you should stop by. It has undergone an amazing transformation so far to this point in this year, and we're close to completion on the depot. Is that correct, Mr. Krass?
Yes, should be wrapped up sometime next week.
And we're going to do more with what we have in front of us here, assuming passage of this amendment. This is part of what I hope you will hear more of in terms of the city council giving back small victories to the city. This is going to be a gathering place for our citizens. It already is now, and it's going to be even better. One of the things I really like about this was a staff-led project. Mr. Crass did a lot of the engineering design on this. Mr. Carteret was involved. This is a win-win across the board, so I can't say enough about this. I'm really pleased, as I think our citizens are and will be as we go forward.
Any other comments? Go ahead, Joe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question for staff. Has there been any consideration of any security surveillance included in some of this electrical package just to deter vandalism that might occur? If I had thought of it earlier, I would have brought it up earlier, but I just thought of it.
Not at this time. We did make sure that the components are fairly sturdy, and yes, we add in the future that can certainly be added if necessary.
Kevin?
That's an excellent question. It's in the past, the Parks Department, Parks Board, have installed some security surveillance devices in other parts. Specifically that I speak of is the skateboard park and that, and I suspect this here will be very similar to that too. Let's also remember this isn't a park yet, and the park board don't have it, but I have confidence and trust in them that they will do whatever they can to keep this here the shining spot that we are all hoping for.
The security at all of our locations and the ability to have that type of security and have video security is actually not a component of this package, but is being discussed in a broader sense relative to a number of our locations. This particular location was actually brought into that discussion relative to some possible future improvements that could take place here. I always get really nervous when we're talking about land acquisition sitting out here, but one of the things I think Mr. Rulo, sitting back in the left-hand corner, may be nodding his head to is where we really find the need for security is when we get bathrooms. It's an amazing trigger point for these parks, and as you know, that's been discussed many times about this particular location. So I would suspect that when the one comes, it will draw the other. If we build it, the security will have to come. So.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion. There is a motion and a second. Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. That takes care of the new business. We'll open the floor for public comments. Seeing nobody, we'll close the public comment and move on to council communications. Here's my handy list of random council members. This evening, we'll start with Councilmember Kellogg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I'd like to thank Commissioner Heather Gambrill for the beautiful art piece that she's donated to the City Hall. It is absolutely beautiful, and I'm excited to see that come in and excited to see it go up. It is a very nice gift, and I thank her personally for that, for all of her hard work. Also, I'm very pleased tonight to, like I said earlier, to help the Arts Commission along with their vision, their mission, and their goals. I wish them well. I will be watching that, and I will participate as a citizen, not as a council member. I don't want them to feel like I'm dictating to them or anything like that, and I hope that they never do feel that. But I am definitely interested in their works, and again, tell them thank you for everything. Also, I would like to take a moment to recognize our own Park Supervisor Steve Rulo's nephew, Vinny Ambrosia, 8-year-old boy. I seen Steve tonight when I walked in. I asked him if he got a new motorcycle out back because he's got a new haircut, and he assured me no, he didn't. His nephew is diagnosed with lymphoma, a little 8-year-old boy. And Steve and many of his friends have supported him by getting a haircut. So he's sitting back there with the bald head. I wish your nephew very well. God bless him, and Godspeed to him and all of that. You, your family, him, and everybody, my hearts and prayers. I hope for a full recovery, and give him whatever he needs. Thanks a lot.
Councilmember Hubach.
I had some questions having to do with our streets and the speed limits on it. I noticed that we have arterials that normally would have a certain range, but ours doesn't. Each arterial seems to have a different speed limit. Same way with collector and local. I'd like to see us take and synchronize those so that we don't have different minor arterials should be the same. I think 58 has 45, but Hubach only has 35. And they're both minor arterials, so they should both have the same speed limit. Same way with some of our collector streets. I'd like to know why some of them aren't synchronized. So I guess what I'm asking is, could they take a look at that and see if there's some changes that could be made?
Councilmember Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to say thank you to our communications manager, Mike. I know we had some hiccups last week with cable being cut and different things, and it's real nice. I've learned how to take a picture with my iPhone and paste it right to a couple of Facebook groups that I'm part of, and it's really nice to have that come out very quickly and accurately, and we're getting good response from that, so I wanted to thank him for that. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Holman.
Thank you, sir. You can tell school's back in session. I think we have some students here in the audience tonight. I always like to recognize them because they had to sit through 45 minutes to an hour or more and not do something a lot more fun, I'm sure. But we like to see you here. Hope you enjoyed and learned something tonight. Second thing, I want to say thanks and kudos to the staff on the live tweet session that Mike and Meredith mentioned earlier. To me, that kind of represented our first real deep dive into social media communication with our citizens. I mean, we've done a few things in the past, but I think that's an even bigger step, and obviously we got some interest on the other end. So while I don't think that's going to completely eclipse all communication in the future, it's certainly going to be a big part of it. So thank you, job well done. And the last thing I want to mention, Councilmember Barber and I attended we were on Foxwood Springs TV here a couple weeks ago, I believe it was, and they have, they're building on, they have a bistro, the cafe bistro that they're building onto, and they're having an open house on we were arguing over the first or the second. First, and say he keeps my calendar for me, so I keep checking with him. But they're pretty proud of it, and it's really nice. So if you get a chance to swing by there and take a look at the work that they've done, it's going to be a pretty nice place and another nice addition to the city. That's all I have. Thank you.
Councilmember Burke.
I have nothing this week. Thank you.
Councilmember Moorhead.
Okay, I'm going to start with the students. You know, early bird gets the worm. You guys are smart. You got in early. You're getting this done. Because 45 minutes, I tell you what, here in about a month, we're about to hit the budget. And about a 2-hour discussion on the budget, you guys have been dreading it. So smart play to get in here early, but I'm glad you guys are here. And I'm glad you guys are willing to participate. So thank you for that. I'm going to compliment the staff in a couple different ways. You know, we get some wonderful information from the city, and I was able to present some of that this last week at the Joint Cities meeting, but I want to specifically point out just how much I'm seeing our Public Works Department working around the city. I think I used the phrase, "Where's Waldo?" because our Reimagine Raymore signs are moving so rapidly around town because these projects are getting completed, but yet they're moving right to other projects, so you never know where it's going to pop up when you're around. But it was pointed out to me that we've made $3.1 million worth of an investment in our infrastructure here in the city this year. And so we're seeing that around the city. We're seeing those improvements, the maintenance. And so, when Mr. Krass was reading off his report earlier, that was just a small amount that's being done, but it's an amazing amount of work, which, obviously the Farmers Market Depot is going to be fantastic when that's completed. That's not a little shed. That's actually a much bigger structure than even I remember seeing it on the drawings. So it's very impressive. You should get out to see that. I also want to commend our budget, the budget people and our finance people. They never get much shout out, but as we talk about the tweets, we have to remember that we're looking at a 3-inch notebook full of financial data that takes months and a lot of months to put together and to make it make sense. It's impressive enough that 8-9 people would show up on a Saturday and force themselves to actually pay attention, care, and actually try to understand it. But to find out, and Mr. Ike, is it 3,100 or 1,300 people were tweeting during that time? 3,200 people were participating in that. That blew me away. I mean, I wouldn't have even expected that for an exciting, dramatic public session here with something conflict-driven. But the budget on a Saturday is another commendation to the city staff, because obviously that budget book was so lively, everybody couldn't wait to dive into it. But that was fantastic, and I don't tweet, so this is something brand new for me, so that's fantastic. I am wrapping up here. I do want to commend the Arts Commission. I guess I would say, Ms. Hocto, if they're judging the floats and they have a float, I believe their float is conflicted out. I just wanted to throw that in there. But I would also say, last year I had the opportunity, as I was walking around my ward, I met this husband and wife that were just moving into their house, and the wife's name was Heather Gambrell. And Ms. Gambrell, in talking to her, had expressed interest in the arts, and some of us on the council were kind of throwing this arts council idea around, and she really was excited to do it. And I just over the last year have been just really impressed and have to commend her, just all her sincere and committed efforts to the city to get involved, even though she's kind of new, to jumping on this commission, to being active, the donation of the art, things like that. She's just been a wonderful citizen for Raymore, and just as a wonderful representation of who we live with and as far as the Raymore family. So I just wanted to finish off with a little shout out to her. With that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was going to give staff a pat on the back for the budget and the tweeting and that conversation, but I'm afraid Mr. Moorhead took all my time. So that's what's today, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple things. I want to thank Jeannie for her salsa recipe, and the sample. It's awesome. Marcia couldn't wait. She had to make some. Speaking of my wife, August 30th marks 40 years of marriage for us.
And it comes to me. All the good things have been taken already. I'll comment about the tweets. That surprised me that there was that many people tweeting about the budget, all that's going on. And we have a reason to go into executive session tonight. Right?
We do, sir.
I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session for real estate matters as authorized by 610-021, subparent 2.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make such a motion.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Abdel-Gawad?
Yes.
Councilmember Barber?
Yes.
Councilmember Burke?
Yes.
Councilmember Holman?
Yes.
Councilmember Hubach?
Yes.
Councilmember Kellogg?
Yes.
Councilmember Moorhead?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
We'll retire to executive session. We'll reconvene the meeting only to dismiss. Thank you, everyone.